Okay, so it turns out there are two versions of the road to decriminalization, or Decrim. Firstly, there's a minority of free trade fundamentalists who seriously do think we should have a totally unregulated system. And associated with them, there's a much larger group who go along with that idea without giving it too much thought because it sounds sort of cool and libertarian. Yeah, there's even been talk in New Zealand of the sex industry being allowed to regulate itself and monitor its own internal standards. I kid you not. But anyway, secondly, we have the reasonably intelligent decrims who are actually calling for decriminalization with some light touch regulation. And I can imagine that ending up as a less than total disaster if we were starting from a utopia of completely free and equal individuals. But the sex industry, as it actually exists in the real world, is full of damaged, vulnerable people and ruthless, highly organized thugs. So, trying to protect society from that by using light touch regulation would be a bit like what they tried to do with the financial sector, except that even the banks didn't settle their scores by sending round a guy with a baseball bat. But anyway, there's a major discrepancy here, because it is still a crime to break a regulation. So in other words, what they're calling for is not decriminalization at all. It's more like a sort of legislation light. And that brings with it all the problems which come from any system which legalizes the sex industry. So, while legalized Nevada has state-run brothels located in specific ghettos, New Zealand has regulated brothels located in specific zones. But the effect of both systems is basically the same. They both leave untouched an underclass of sex providers who need to work outside the system. Women who are on drugs and so aren't allowed in the regulated brothels. Women who are over the hill and so have to work outside the zone where there's less competition, etc. In other words, Decrim, like legalization, does nothing to decrease the amount of gonzo sex that's going on in the sector that remains underground, even though that was one of the main things it claimed to be able to do. And when I say gonzo sex, I mean women being forced to do things they haven't agreed to, so sex without a condom is only one example of that. In fact, there's only one system which can actually reduce the number of women having to do gonzo sex, not to mention the humiliation of being a sex provider in general, and that's the Swedish model, a system which attacks the pimps and punters with the full weight of the law, while decriminalizing the sex providers and helping them to leave the industry. That's why the number of Swedish men who buy sex fell from 13% to 8% between 1996 and 2008, which is what I call a good result.